Hello everyone, we got another build video today, this time featuring Eleonora's Poleblade, a twin blade with a unique weapon art that is pretty sick to pull off. However, when I was making this build initially, it just lacked a certain bite that I was looking for. It didn't bleed as well as some of the other twin blades, and the damage output for the dex scaling just wasn't great. So I did a little bit of tweaking to my stats, and I think I found something that I'm pretty happy with, but it wasn't enough for me. So I added some secret sauces that I'll show you today in this video. Just a quick disclaimer, any item, equipment, or spells that are listed in this video as core or needed, I'll try to list below in the description. So if you're looking for the location of the item, check out the description, click the link, and it will take you to the wiki page and you can find the location there yourself. I'm doing it this way so I don't spoil it for anybody else. And of course, support your boy. If you're down there, click on that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so that way when I drop another build video, you won't miss it. Anywho, this build is great for PvE and pretty good for PvP. You definitely have to do a bit more work than some of the other weapons out there. It definitely feels a lot more honest than the other two build videos that I made recently, 3-sword style and the Revengeance build, but it has its own unique playstyle and you might even mesh with it more. So let me show you this awesome build, Death's Dance. Let's start out with the stats. The most optimal class is going to be Prophet, but I'm playing as a Samurai in this video, so it's not a crazy big deal. We're going to talk about the level 150 stats, but on screen I'm going to show you the level 100 and level 50 stats, so check those out if you want some guidance on that. So we're going to go with 40 Vigor, 22 Mind, 23 Endurance, 12 Strength, 45 Dexterity, 7 Intelligence, 21 Faith, and 60 Arcane. These stats may seem like a head scratcher at first with 21 Faith, nothing at 80. It's kind of confusing, right? Don't worry, I got you. So Eleonora's Poleblade is a bleed weapon that doesn't do as much bleed, but it has a unique weapon art with Hyper Armor. Hyper Armor works really well if you can tank a hit, which is why we're at 40 Vigor instead of the standard 35. It's going to be 45 once we equip our Talisman, the Radagon Sword Seal. It may feel a bit low, but so far in testing, I haven't been one-shotted by anybody yet, so you can take a hit, and if you can take a hit, you can trade and kill them with your bleed proc from the weapon art. As for dexterity, with the Radagon Sword Seal, we go to 50, and 60 for Arcane is just to help us proc that bleed. It also helps us to increase our incantations damage. We don't run a lot of damaging incantations, but we do have some, so it just makes you more well-rounded. And 21 Faith is for the secret sauce. You can also do it with 15 for most of the game. So starting Prophet just gives you 16 off the bat, which means you're covered for a very long time before you want to invest anything into Faith. So, talking about the secret sauce, let's move on over to the core spells. The core spell I'm going to recommend for you today is going to be Dragonbolt Blessing. Dragonbolt Blessing helps you increase your resistances to afflictions like Bleed, Scarlet Rot, Madness, Death, Poison, whatever it is, it helps you resist it. But the key shiny part is that it deflects all normal attacks, so uncharged heavies and light swings from a weapon, from a player, or even enemies who aren't strong will bounce off. You still take damage and you still get staggered, but they'll get staggered too. So what you can end up doing actually is stagger them into your weapon art. For PvE, this could be really useful if you're being like crowded by a bunch of smaller aggro enemies and mobs like dogs and the villagers and stuff, like just poking at you non-stop. Every time they hit you, they'll stagger too, giving you time to swing back and kill them. Can be really nice as Eleonora's Poleblade does not have the best AoE. You do swing your blade around everywhere, but it won't cover a wide radius real quick. In PvP, this thing is downright amazing as it can make people bounce off of like their power stance slashes or light slashes. Any one-handed weapon or power stance attacks has a light attack or an uncharged heavy attack outside of like colossal weapons or whips. Whips is the only weapon that can really pierce through the Dragonbolt Blessing. So if your opponent doesn't know that and they try to trade with you with a dual bleed katana, not only do you have bleed resistance, but they're bounce. Outside of like jump attacks or something, they're gonna bounce, giving you a free opportunity to attack or use your weapon art, and then you're gonna make them bleed and they'll die. The weakness to the Dragonbolt Blessing, of course, is that it lowers your lightning negation, so you take a lot more lightning damage, but you can override this buff with the other one that I would recommend for most purposes outside of just fighting PvP, and that is Flames Grant Me Strength. Flames Grant Me Strength is an incantation that gives you 20% physical and fire attack power in PvE and 15% to fire and physical in PvP. So just a big damage boost altogether, and if you're not planning on getting hit anyways or trading, then you're going to use this over Dragonbolt. But if you're ever fighting something you're struggling at and you have to trade a lot, Dragonbolt is the way to go. It's been very, very fun to use in PvP, but that's not the only sauce, so we'll go over the second secret sauce very soon. Next, we're going to move over to the Beastol package. The Beastol package is a set of incantations that require really low faith, but are extremely useful. First, we got Beastol Vitality, giving you heals over time, so if you're ever fighting or going long stretches, this is extremely useful as you're going to be regenerating health as you're walking around. Secondly, you're going to use Beastol Sling. It's just a really fast Kono AoE, great for PvP because it interrupts people and staggers people, and it's quick, it's real fast, and it does some good AoE. Once you reach late game, you can equip Gurang's Beast Claws, which is a 360 AoE physical damage incantations. Pretty nice to have when you're clearing out a big room. And then we can equip Lightning Spear, which is good for long range encounters, or you need to snipe some enemies off the map from far away distances. You probably won't be using it too much, but it's there if you need it. Anything else? I would pick the Cleanse of your choosing for whatever zone you're going through, or the fortification spells of your choosing based on what you're fighting. For example, if you're going to take a trip down Rhea Lucaria, maybe consider a magic fortification, and it's pretty good for PvP too, depending on what kind of builds are popular at the time. Alright, next up, let's talk about equipment. Of course, in the main hand, we got the Eleonora's Poleblade. Not much to say here. It's amazing. It has a unique charge attack that I love using in PvE. In PvP, it can be somewhat good. It has to be mind game, so it's definitely not something you can just throw out and hit. It's like if your opponent's being aggressive and running towards you, and like maybe they'll do a roll as they run towards you, maybe that's a place where you can use it, but you'll rarely use it in PvP. You'll probably often use it in PvE. But what you're going to be using a lot of is going to be the weapon art. The weapon art has some pretty good reach, and it has hyper armor once it gets started. So once you start leaping, you can take a couple hits before you get knocked out of it. This pairs really well with the Dragonbolt Blessing because if enemies hit you before you cast your weapon art, they're going to bounce. And if you're casting your weapon art, they have to do a jump attack or a charge heavy attack with their own weapon arts to trade. Otherwise, they'll bounce and you'll be able to weapon art again. So yeah, if you catch them at the first one, you can use an extension to back up, and the backup slash will probably proc the bleed and kill them, but if it doesn't, sometimes it's good to mind game and actually switch your weapon to the second main hand weapon we're going to be using today, and that is the Yurumi Whip. This whip is amazing. It has crazy reach, and alongside the Eleonora's Poleblade, it also has a unique charge attack that reaches really, really far and will catch people off guard. Most people, after getting caught in Eleonora's weapon art, will start backing up and trying to heal if you're not in like some kind of honorable duel. So what I like to do is I like to switch out to the whip. Since Yurumi is not technically a unique weapon, you can equip any Ash of War on it. So that means you can use Thunderbolt, or what I'm using right now, the Bloodhound Step, to get really close to them, and then I just poke them with the whip and they'll proc bleed or they'll die, because we're going to make this whip a blood whip. Now, if you're running a catacomb or dungeon where there are no human enemies, meaning you can't proc bleed, make sure to change this whip to lightning. Alright, let's move on to the offhand weapons. First, you want a Sacred Seal, and it's going to be the Dragon Communion Seal because it has an S rating in Arcane once you level it up all the way. We do have quite a bit of a significant Arcane investment, so this just helps your incantation scaling. And if you have it, I don't have it for this video, but I would recommend a second whip, so that way you can access power stance whip movesets, which is amazing with Bloodhound Step. So if you have another whip you can upgrade, like Hoslo's whip or another Yurumi or another whip in general, just level that up, pair it up with your Yurumi, and go to town. It's honestly really, really fun chasing people down with dual whips and Bloodhound Step. It's kind of disgusting, honestly. And of course, with Eleonora's Poleblade, I forgot to mention, but try mixing the one-handed and two-handed movesets just so you can get some variance. I'm not a fan of the running normal attacks in both the two-handed and one-handed stance for Eleonora's Poleblade. It doesn't seem to stagger well, so I mainly often just use the running heavy attack or backdash light attack to get my combos started. Alright, lastly, we're going to talk about Talismans, and we're going to start off with Radagon Sorcio. It is probably the best talisman in the game, 20 extra levels for the price of taking more damage, but it also gives you vigor, so it kind of cancels itself out. Definitely would recommend on almost every single build I can think of. It's just a good talisman, like way too good. Secondly, we're gonna go with the Rotten Wing Sword Insignia, the Millicent's Prosthesis. If you have both, you could also equip both. It gives you an attack boost with successive attacks up to 22% for the Rotten Wing Sword Insignia, and Millicent's Prosthesis gives you an extra 5 dexterity and a slight damage boost per successive hits. So both of these stacks, once you land your weapon art, you're just gonna be doing massive amounts of damage. Third one up, I'm gonna recommend either Lord of Blood's Exaltation or Shard of Alexander. Shard of Alexander is an upfront damage boost, while Lord of Blood's Exaltation gives you more damage at the price of having to bleed an enemy first. So in PvE, you're gonna have this buff a lot, and in PvP, your enemy's probably gonna die before you get this buff. I prefer the Shard of Alexander because I like consistency. I like to just know how much damage I do before proccing anything else. That's kind of nice. And we already have the Rotten Wing Insignia or Millicent's Prosthesis for that ramping damage anyways. So yeah, I want to make sure I don't backload all of my damage and have some at the front and some at the back. Lastly, I'm going to go with a personal choice, the Green Turtle Talisman, because stamina is king in this game. The better your stamina recovery, the better you're going to be at, because stamina affects your dodging, your attacks, and your casting. So always have some kind of plan to have stamina regen. If you don't have the Green Turtle Talisman, you may have to invest more points in endurance. If you somehow have both the Rotten Wing Sword Insignia and Millicent's Prosthesis, if you want more damage and you're already good at stamina management, that's an option for you as well. And lastly, for equipment, wear whatever you want. There is a white mask that gives you a 10% attack boost whenever somebody bleeds nearby for 20 seconds, but I prefer fashion over utility, so I end up wearing whatever I like. Now, I do think armor is pretty nice for this build, as it helps you survive more while trying to trade with the hyper armor of Eleonora's Poleblade, but that's up to you how you want to do things. Just stay medium or light load. I don't recommend putting more armor on for heavy just because it cripples your mobility too much. But I guess it's not too bad for this build because you do have Bloodhound Step, so it's up to you. Anyways, that's my build, Death's Dance. Give it a try, it's a bit of fun, you may enjoy it. If you have any thoughts or tips you want to leave for other players, go for it. And if you want to see some other weapon builds, leave a recommendation on what you want to see in the future. My name is Varsona, I'll see you next time.